The sky above the alien planet was painted with two suns, their golden light shining over the quiet plains. Captain Elias Ward walked through the dust, his rifle in hand, scanning the area. The air was dry, and a faint smell of burned metal still lingered. Just a few hours ago, there had been a short but violent clash between the human exploration team and a group of unknown attackers. The humans had won, but something felt wrong. Elias moved carefully over the blackened ground, boots crunching on broken debris. His visor displayed heat signatures, searching for any survivors. Most of the attackers had retreated, leaving behind wreckage and silence. The mission was simple: secure the area and report back. Then he heard it. A soft sound, almost like a whimper. Elias froze. His hand tightened on his weapon. Slowly, he followed the sound, stepping past a shattered transport pod. Behind a fallen piece of metal, something moved. He knelt down, rifle ready. It was not an enemy soldier. A tiny alien girl crouched under the wreckage, her thin arms wrapped around her knees. Her skin glowed faintly blue, her eyes large and bright like polished gems. She was no more than half a meter tall, looking fragile, almost weightless. She trembled as she looked up at him. For a moment, the world went completely still. Elias had seen many things during his service, but never a child of another species. His training told him to be cautious. She could be dangerous, a decoy, or carrying a hidden weapon. His orders were clear: report any unknown life form for security processing. But when the alien girl opened her mouth, no weapon came out. Instead, a faint voice filled his head. "Please," the voice whispered. Not in English, not in any spoken language, but directly in his mind. Her words were broken, but the meaning was clear. "Please, no hurt. No hurt." Elias felt something twist in his chest. The girl was terrified. She was not an enemy soldier. She was just a child, alone, afraid, begging for her life. He slowly lowered his weapon. "It's okay," he said softly, though he knew she might not understand his words. He placed the rifle on the ground and raised both hands to show he meant no harm. The girl blinked, confused. Elias reached forward carefully and lifted the piece of metal that had trapped her. She flinched but did not run. Her tiny body shook with fear. "You're safe," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she crawled forward and stood. She was so small that she barely reached his knee. Her thin fingers clutched at his armor, almost as if she thought he might disappear. Elias felt his throat tighten. He could not leave her here. The attackers might return. He picked her up carefully. She was light as air, and she pressed herself against his chest, still trembling. When Elias reached the rest of his team at the edge of the field, the other soldiers were surprised. "Captain, what is that?" one of them asked, pointing at the small alien in his arms. "She's just a child," Elias said firmly. "She's coming with us." "That's against protocol," another soldier argued. "We're supposed to bring any unknown alien to command. They'll handle it." Elias looked down at the girl. She was watching the soldiers with wide, frightened eyes. "No," Elias said after a pause. "Command can wait. First, she needs food, water, and a safe place. Then we can talk about reports." His men exchanged uneasy glances but followed him back to base. When they arrived, Elias placed the girl on a bed in the med bay. She did not let go of his hand, so he sat beside her until she finally closed her glowing eyes and drifted into sleep. Elias stared at the ceiling for a long time, thinking. This was more than just another mission. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this choice, to save one tiny alien girl instead of treating her like a prisoner, might change everything, and he was ready to face whatever came next. Morning came slowly on the alien world. The twin suns rose over the base, shining through the dusty windows. Captain Elias Ward sat in the medbay chair, still wearing his armor from last night. The small alien girl was curled up on the bed beside him, breathing softly. Elias had barely slept. His mind was full of questions. Who was she? Why was she there during the attack? And most of all, Colin, what would happen when Command found out? The sound of boots echoed outside. The door opened and Lieutenant Grayson, his second in command, stepped in. "Captain," Grayson said, glancing at the girl, "Command has been informed. They want you in the briefing room, now." Elias nodded and gently freed his hand from the girl's grip. She stirred, blinking at him with glowing eyes. "I'll be back," Elias said softly. He pointed at the bed to let her know she should stay. She tilted her head, not fully understanding, but stayed put. When Elias entered the briefing room, several officers were waiting. Colonel Reeves, a strict and by-the-book commander, stood at the head of the table. "Captain Ward," Reeves said sharply, "explain why you brought an unidentified alien into the base without authorization." Elias stood straight. "Because she's a child, sir." She was trapped under debris. "She posed no threat." "That is not your decision to make," Reeves replied. "Protocol exists for a reason. Any unknown alien could carry pathogens, tracking devices, or worse. She should be in containment." "With respect, sir," Elias said, keeping his voice calm. "She was terrified. If we throw her into a cage, we risk turning her people into enemies. We don't even know if her species is hostile." Reeves narrowed his eyes. "Your job is not diplomacy, Captain. Your job is security. Hand her over to the science division for study. Immediately." Elias hesitated. Every instinct told him this was wrong. "With all due respect," Elias said slowly, "I won't do that. Not until I know more about what happened out there." The room went silent. Several officers exchanged shocked looks. Few soldiers ever refused a direct order from a colonel. "Captain Ward," Reeves said coldly, "you are dangerously close to insubordination." "Then call it what you like," Elias said. "But I will not hand over a child to be treated like a lab sample. She deserves better than that." Reeves's face darkened. "You are responsible for her safety, Captain. If anything happens, it's on you." Elias nodded. "Understood." He turned and walked out before anyone could stop him. Back in the med bay, Elias found the alien girl sitting up. She looked worried, as if she sensed the tension. "It's okay," Elias told her, sitting down beside her. "You're safe here. I promise." She tilted her head, then slowly reached out and touched his chest plate with her small glowing fingers. A faint hum filled the room. For a brief moment, Elias felt something, a flash of images in his mind. He saw a village, simple and peaceful. He saw fire raining from the sky, strange soldiers burning homes. He saw the girl running, hiding, crying for help. Then it was gone. Elias exhaled. "So that's what happened to you," he whispered. "You lost everything." The girl blinked up at him. Her telepathic voice came faint but clearer than before. "Bad ones. Destroy. Home," she said slowly. Elias clenched his jaw. So she wasn't just a random survivor. Someone had attacked her people, and the humans had been caught in the crossfire. Later that day, Elias's squad gathered in the mess hall. The mood was tense. "Captain," Sergeant Mills said, crossing his arms, "we all heard what happened in the briefing room. You really going against orders for that alien?" "She's not just an alien," Elias said firmly. "She's a child." She saw her whole village wiped out. "Whoever attacked her people is still out there. If we give her to the science division, we lose any chance of learning what really happened." Some soldiers looked uneasy. Others nodded slowly, understanding. "You're risking your career over this," Mills warned. "Some things are worth risking for," Elias said. That night, Elias stayed in the med bay again. The girl seemed calmer now, as if she trusted him more. She sat beside him and mimicked his actions, drinking water when he drank, touching his armor with curiosity. Elias smiled faintly. "You're stronger than you look," he told her. She looked at him and said one new word, soft but clear. "Safe." The single word hit Elias harder than any battle wound. Yes, he thought. As long as I'm here, you are safe. But deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. The real danger had not passed, and soon he might have to choose between protecting her and obeying everything he had sworn to follow. The night was quiet when Elias made his decision. The base was still with only a few guards on watch. The alien girl sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window as if waiting for something. Elias strapped on his light armor and picked up his rifle. "We're going out," he whispered to her. She turned her glowing eyes toward him and tilted her head. "Out?" she said, using one of the few human words she had learned. "Yes," Elias said. "Out." He opened the back door of the med bay and led her through the shadowed corridors of the base. Every step was careful. If Colonel Reeves discovered he had taken her outside without permission, his career would be over. But Elias could not stay inside any longer. He needed answers, and he suspected the girl could lead him to them. Once outside, the night air was cold, carrying the faint smell of burned metal from the battlefield. Elias and the girl moved through the tall grass until they reached the place where he had first found her. "Do you remember where your home is?" Elias asked gently. The girl closed her eyes. A soft hum filled the air, and then she pointed to the north. "Home," she said in a whisper. Elias nodded. "Then let's go." The walk was slow and quiet. The girl moved with surprising grace, her bare feet barely touching the ground. Elias stayed alert, scanning the area for any signs of trouble. After an hour, they reached the edge of a valley. Down below, Elias could see what was left of a village. Small houses made of stone, now blackened and broken. Fires had long gone out, leaving only smoke stains. The girl froze, staring down at the ruins. Her small hands tightened. "It's okay," Elias said softly. "I'm here." They walked into the village. Elias kept his rifle ready just in case. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crunch of his boots. The girl led him to the center of the village where a large stone circle stood. She placed her hand on the stone, and suddenly, Elias felt another rush of images in his mind. He saw the village full of life, aliens walking, laughing, sharing food. Then he saw the attack again. Strange armored figures, not human, stormed the village. They carried advanced weapons, burning homes, capturing some of the villagers. Then Elias saw something even more shocking. The attackers were not the same ones who had fought the humans earlier. These were taller, with jagged armor and glowing red visors. The vision ended. Elias stepped back, breathing hard. "So it wasn't just a fight between your people and my soldiers," he said aloud. "There's a third group. Someone who wants all of us to fight each other." The girl nodded slowly, her glowing eyes full of sadness. Suddenly a sound broke the night. A sharp hiss, followed by a beam of light hitting the ground near Elias's feet. "Ambush!" Elias shouted, pulling the girl behind him. Figures stepped out of the shadows. They were the same red-visored soldiers from the vision. Elias fired his rifle, dropping one of them. The girl grabbed his arm, her telepathic voice filling his head. "Run!" she urged, but Elias didn't run, not yet. He aimed and fired again, forcing the attackers to take cover. "Go!" he shouted, pushing the girl toward a broken wall. She ducked behind it. Elias moved quickly, firing in short bursts. He felt a sharp sting in his arm as one shot grazed him, but he kept fighting. After several tense minutes, the attackers pulled back, disappearing into the darkness as suddenly as they had appeared. Elias's breathing was heavy. He turned to find the girl peeking out from behind the wall. She ran to him and touched his injured arm, her eyes wide with worry. "I'm fine," Elias said, though blood trickled down his sleeve. "We need to move before they come back." They left the village quickly, heading back toward the base. When they finally reached safety, Elias collapsed against the wall, exhausted. The girl sat beside him, still holding his arm. "Protector," she said softly, using a word he had never heard from her before. Elias looked at her, surprised. "You trust me now?" he asked. She nodded. "Protector," she repeated, this time more firmly. Elias smiled faintly despite the pain. "Then I'll keep protecting you, but now we know who the real enemy is." He looked out toward the dark horizon where the red-visored soldiers had come from. "This isn't just about saving one child anymore," he whispered. "This is about stopping a war." The base was still asleep when Captain Elias Ward returned with the alien girl. His arm was bandaged and his armor was burned from the fight. The night's events played in his mind. The vision, the red-visored soldiers, the ambush. He had proof now that a third faction was involved, but convincing command would not be easy. The girl sat quietly on the medbay bed while Elias reported to his squad. His soldiers gathered around, listening closely as he explained what had happened. "They're not just random raiders," Elias said, his voice hard. "They're organized, armed, and they want us and the Thera to fight each other. If we don't stop them, they'll keep striking until both sides are too weak to resist." Sergeant Mills frowned. "Do you think command will believe you?" "They have to," Elias said. "And if they don't, we'll make them." He left the medbay and went straight to the briefing room. Colonel Reeves was already there, waiting. "You disobeyed direct orders," Reeves said coldly as Elias entered. "You took the alien outside without clearance and put this base at risk." "With respect, sir, I put myself at risk. Not the base," Elias said firmly. "And I have proof of what's really happening out there." Reeves crossed his arms. "Go on." Elias described everything, the ruined village, the telepathic vision, the attackers with red visors. He even showed the scorch marks on his armor and the blood-stained bandage on his arm. They weren't Thera, Elias finished, and they weren't any group we've seen before. They want us distracted, fighting the wrong enemy. Reeves stayed silent for a long moment. That's a serious claim, Captain. If you're wrong, I'm not wrong, Elias interrupted. Sir, we have a chance to make an ally here. That girl could be the bridge between us and her people. If we lose her, we lose that chance. Before Reeves could reply, an alarm blared through the base. Red lights flashed. Base under attack! A voice shouted over the speakers. Elias and Reeves rushed outside. Explosions shook the ground as energy blasts rained down on the perimeter walls. Soldiers scrambled to defensive positions. Elias grabbed his rifle and turned to Reeves. They followed us. We need every man ready now. Reeves hesitated only for a second before barking orders. All units to the walls. Defend the base! Elias ran back to the medbay where the alien girl was hiding under the bed. It's okay, Elias said, kneeling down. But I need your help. Can you tell where they're coming from? The girl touched his arm and a faint hum filled the room. Images flashed in his mind. Enemy soldiers moving through the hills surrounding the base. Elias grabbed his communicator. They're flanking us from the east ridge. His warning gave the defenders precious seconds to redirect heavy guns. When the attackers came into view, they were met with a hail of fire. Elias fought alongside his squad, moving from one barricade to another, shouting orders. The girl stayed behind the walls but kept sending flashes of information into his mind. Which direction the next attack would come from, when to take cover. Captain! Mills shouted over the gunfire. If she can see them, we have the advantage. Elias nodded. Then let's use it. Wave after wave of red-visored soldiers attacked, but the defenders held their ground. Smoke and dust filled the air. Elias felt the burn in his injured arm but kept fighting, refusing to give an inch. Finally, after what felt like hours, the enemy began to retreat. The last of the attackers vanished into the night, leaving behind wreckage and silence. Cheers went up around the base, but Elias was already heading back to the medbay. The girl stood there waiting, her small hands glowing faintly. You did good, Elias said, kneeling so they were eye level. You saved lives tonight. She reached out and touched his face gently. Family, she said in her soft voice. Elias felt a lump in his throat. Yeah, he said quietly. Family. Later, in the command room, Reeves stood with Elias and the other officers. You were right, Reeves admitted at last. There is a third faction, and they're more dangerous than we thought. From now on, we work with the Thera, starting with her. Elias nodded. Then we have to move fast. They won't stop until we stop them. Reeves turned to him. Then you'd better be ready, Captain. You just became our point man for this alliance. Elias glanced toward the medbay where the girl was resting. I was ready the moment I picked her up, he said. Outside, the stars shone bright. The war was far from over, but for the first time, there was hope. Hope that humans and Thera could stand together, and Elias Ward was ready to lead them. The dawn on the alien world was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. Captain Elias Ward stood on the ridge overlooking the valley where the final battle would take place. Beside him, the tiny alien girl, now fully awake and alert, held his hand. Her small glowing eyes scanned the horizon, sensing movements he could not see. We're ready, Elias said quietly. They'll come, but we'll be ready too. The base behind them was quiet but filled with energy. Humans and Thera soldiers moved side by side, sharing strategies, preparing weapons, and checking defenses. For the first time, two species who had been on opposite sides were united with a single goal: stop the red-visored faction before more lives were lost. Elias knelt beside the girl. I need you to stay calm, he said. Help us if you can, but don't take too much risk. She shook her head firmly. No, Protector. I help, he smiled faintly. All right, let's do this together. The ground trembled as the first wave of the enemy advanced. From the valley below, the red-visored soldiers moved in perfect formation, their weapons glowing ominously. Hold your positions, Elias shouted, raising his rifle. Wait for my signal. The girl placed her small hands on the stone wall. A faint hum filled the air, and Elias felt a rush of information in his mind. He knew exactly where the enemy would strike first, where their numbers were strongest, and where their weak points were. Now, he shouted. Human and Thera soldiers unleashed a coordinated attack. Lasers and plasma bolts filled the sky, explosions sending clouds of dust into the air. Elias moved quickly, directing soldiers, taking cover and shooting when needed. The girl ran along the walls, her tiny body agile, warning Elias of any flanking movements. Several times Elias had to pull her out of the way of incoming blasts. Yet she never stopped helping, her trust in him evident in the way she followed his commands without hesitation. Hours passed like minutes. The two sides clashed repeatedly, but Elias's strategy, guided by the girl's visions, kept their forces one step ahead. Finally, the leader of the red-visored faction appeared. Tall and imposing, with a glowing weapon that seemed larger than life. It was clear this soldier was different, the commander of the attackers. Elias tightened his grip on his rifle. "This ends now," he whispered. He and a small team advanced toward the enemy leader. The girl followed, staying close, her small size allowing her to dodge attacks that others could not. The leader fired a massive energy beam, and Elias barely dodged it, rolling to the side. He returned fire, aiming carefully at weak points in the armor. The Thera joined him, moving in perfect coordination. The battle was fierce, but in the end, the red-visored commander fell. The remaining soldiers, leaderless and disoriented, fled into the mountains. Elias knelt beside the tiny alien girl, breathing heavily. She smiled up at him, glowing softly in the morning light. "We did it," he said, voice filled with relief. "It's over. For now." Back at the base, the surviving soldiers celebrated quietly. They had won, but more importantly, they had learned something vital. Humans and Thera could fight together, protect each other, and trust each other. Colonel Reeves approached Elias, his face unreadable. "Captain Ward," he said, finally showing a hint of respect. "You were right. Protecting her was the right choice. She's not just a child. She's a symbol of hope, of peace between our species." Elias looked at the girl, who waved shyly. "Family," she said softly. "Yes," Elias said, placing a hand on her small shoulder. "Family." A few days later, the alien girl stood before the human high command, no longer afraid. She was presented not as a prisoner, but as the first ambassador of her people. Humans and Thera watched as she spoke through simple telepathy, her glowing eyes shining with hope and courage. Elias stood beside her, proud. He had chosen compassion over strict orders, trust over fear. That choice had united two species and saved countless lives. The galaxy began to notice humanity's actions. News spread. Humans were capable of great bravery, deep empathy, and wise leadership. Aliens who had once doubted humanity now regarded them with respect. The tiny alien girl smiled at Elias. "Protector," she said. "And you are my friend," he replied. As the sun set over the alien world, Elias looked out at the valley, knowing that the future was uncertain but brighter than ever. Humans and Thera would face new challenges, but now they would face them together. In the end, it was not weapons, not strategy, but the courage to protect and the choice to do what was right that had changed the course of history. Elias and the tiny alien girl walked side by side, ready to meet whatever came next. The galaxy had seen humanity at its best, not as conquerors but as protectors, and that was a story worth telling.